morning, Professor Yucel. Thank you so much for participating in this interview.
My pleasure.
Okay, so to start, we would like to know more about yourself and your experience. So why don't you start by telling us why you entered your field of interest, which is renewable energy and operations and supply chain management?
Yes, exactly. So actually that dates back to even high school.
Mm-hmm.
I started to develop like this interest in math and particularly science. And in high school I went to a specialized math school. So the focus was pretty much on math skills. And then towards the college choice I decided that math is the thing that I had the passion for. And in college I started to examine like different fields. So industrial engineering was definitely a good fit, mainly because it's related to optimization. That is what I have the passion for. So I didn't like theoretical math that much. But it turns out that I'm more interested in applied techniques. Especially, I discovered that my main interest was to use math or quantitative skills to answer questions that are relevant to businesses, that are relevant to people, that are relevant to governments, policymakers. So it turns out that I really liked math, but I liked it as a tool rather than itself. So I decided to do industrial engineering. So that's, I think, the first part of how I became interested in these kind of issues. And then I started to look at different sides, different applications of the profession. So I did some finance. It was interesting. The compensation is usually good. Finance is an interesting field, a lot of dynamics, a lot of changes. However, in the finance world, you're usually very small to have a substantial impact over the big markets, and it usually doesn't change even if you have a lot of experience. Maybe you can get more different roles, but that was a certain limitation. Then I started to do forecasting. I think that stemmed from my interest in finance, like try to estimate where the market is going. And then forecasting became boring after a certain time, mainly because it required more statistic skills that I had at that time. Then I switched to airlines. I did quite a few work on airline scheduling, how to basically schedule the crew for different legs of flights. That was interesting, but that is also very problem driven. I mean, too much dependent on the problem, I would say, because you have a very specific goal. You have to decide in which flight, which cabin crew is going to fly. So that's by nature very problem dependent, and the answer changes from one airliner to another, or from one cabin crew to the other. So I thought that I need a change at that point. And then energy was something big. It is still big. It's one of the biggest sectors of the US GDP. So I decided to do energy, but I also wanted to have more policy implications. So renewable energy is definitely then the right spot, because there's a lot of interest on renewable energy, and on top of it, maybe even more importantly, policymakers do really care about it. So I think that was a good idea to start with renewable energy. And then supply chain setting is definitely existent in the energy sector as well, right? Because you have the generators, transmission, and which can be like logistics, and then the consumers. So supply chain settings are there in energy with different notions, such as you don't hold inventory, right, in electricity markets. So I think that's a detailed, I would say, overview of how I came up with renewable energy in supply chain management. That was apparently more of like a trial and error process. I tried a few things. I liked some of them. I didn't like the others, and I kept the parts that I liked from each project, from everything that I worked on, and it accumulated to renewable energy.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. So, could you also please tell us why you decided to teach supply chain management for an
Sure.
program?
Sure. I think that was so right now when I look at my decision, I think I made the right decision. So
Yeah.
to begin with, and I'm not saying it to you because this is an MEM program interview. I would tell it to anyone else. But I think that was a good career choice. When the opportunity arrived, I thought about teaching to students who have strong technical background, and MEM students are definitely a good candidate for that. So that was, I think, number one reason. And number two reason is that MEM students share my background more or less the same, because I also did engineering, and I also transitioned from engineering to business, and I think that's an important transition, and I appreciate the challenges of the transition because I had the transition by myself as well, and I thought that I would contribute to the program more than the other opportunities in which I would teach. So I think that's the main idea. I think there was, and there still is, a good fit for myself teaching in the MEM program. I think that's the main driver of my decision.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that.
Thanks a lot.
So, what do you like the best about teaching MEM so far?
There are a lot of things that I like, quite a few that I don't like. Well, maybe none. But the most, I think, let me think about it. Well, there are a lot of things that I like, but I think one of the most important things is the motivation. So whenever I step in the classroom, I expect a lot of engagement from the students because that drives the discussion during the class. And I think, especially like for my class, for supply chain management, which is driven by the case studies and the analysis of case studies, I think it's crucial for the students to engage. And I see that motivation in the eyes of the students. Whenever I walk into the classroom, everybody seems to be willing to learn, or at least I understand it that way. I hope everybody is willing to learn. But that motivation is, I think, the most important driver of the engagement in the class, and I think that's what I enjoy the most so far, and I think we are doing a good job in terms of holding the classroom sessions live and exciting.
Our next question might be a little tricky.
Okay.
If you have to choose 3 words to describe MEM students, what would they be?
3 words. Okay, that's hard because I can choose thousands of words, but 3 words is hard. Let me think a little bit. So the first one is clear. I think the first one is smart.
Right.
The MEM students, again, no conflicts of interests here. If I were talking to a non-MEM student, I would say the same. I think the MEM students are smart, well-educated, well-trained, quantitatively oriented, capable of understanding complicated context, complicated, challenging real-life problems. So I think that's a big plus, and it's good for an instructor in the sense that whenever I say something, it's not like I'm talking to a wall. I get feedback and I get this engagement. That is fantastic from an instructor's perspective. But it is also challenging because you cannot say random things to these guys. You have to be really concise. You have to be really clear, and you really need to be sure that you know the material because they can understand and they can tell. Like, okay, you said this, but it doesn't make sense, and then there's this tension in the class. So I think number one feature of the MEM students, I guess, is that they're smart. Number 2 might be, well, it's also related to number 1, I guess. They're technically oriented. So it's a little bit different than an MBA classroom, or it's a little bit different than a classroom in which there are a lot of business majors, because because business majors or MBAs tend to have more soft skills. So they're, I think, better in terms of presentation skills or in terms of facilitating a classroom discussion which involves softer concepts, strategy or marketing or those kind of discussions. However, the MEM students are more technically oriented, and in order to keep their attention, I think you need to show more numbers, more equations compared to the MBAs or compared to the other programs. So I think that's certainly an issue. Something good from my perspective. Other disciplines of business school would not like the idea of having too many equations, but on my perspective, it's good. So I think the second distinctive feature of MEM students is that they are technically oriented. They're solid, math-based, and I think that's great. I really liked it. And as I have only one left. That's hard. I would re-emphasize the motivation part. Mm-hmm. I think the willingness to learn in the classroom is quite high. I think it's mainly because the students are also aware that they are having a transition in their way of thinking about how the world functions, about how the firms function. So an engineering background is more into solutions that are proven by the data, that are backed up by math, that are backed up by quantitative skills. However, in business settings, you usually don't have the data, or even if you have the data, you may not have the executives who believe as much as an engineer would on data. So that requires a certain transition in terms of the skill set and in terms of the mindset. So majority of the students, my observation is that they're aware of the challenges of this transition, and this gives them a high motivation to learn, a high willingness to learn, I would say. So I think these three things, so the smartness, technical orientation, and the motivation to learn are the key three features to differentiate MEMs from the other students. And I think they're fun people, so that's a fourth added benefit of being able to engage with MEM students, and I truly enjoy it so far.
Okay, thank you. So now is the season of job searching. So what advice would you give MEM students to search for summer internships and also to approach career after graduation?
I think that's a great question. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very hard question. Yeah. I think there's no single answer to that. And the answer, I think, really depends on who you are and what you want to do. However, coming from a college program without having a substantial amount of work experience, it's sometimes hard to understand what you want to do. There are all these functionalities outside of the boundaries of academia. You can be in the marketing team, you can be in the strategy team, you can be in the operations, and there are a lot of opportunities. So I think the main approach for the internship is to apply as many positions as possible. So it would be great if you have like a certain idea that you want to do, say, supply chain management. So or even more specific, I want to do sustainability in supply chain management. So that is fantastic. If you have it, that's a great passion, go for it, and I'm sure that you're going to be doing a good job. However, what I see through my conversations with a lot of students is that a lot of students do not have a certain idea or a very rigid idea about what they're going to do next. Mm-hmm. So in these situations, it's a little bit intimidating because like you don't know what to do, but I think it's perfectly fine. A lot of people actually don't know what to do. Even now, I am not 100% sure. So there's always this buffer about what you would want to do in the future. But especially in terms of finding the first job, in terms of getting into the first internship, these challenges are even more. So I think the best approach for the majority of the students who haven't decided on a certain job yet is to apply as many as possible. Apply as many as possible and try to work with the logistics of the applications, because I think it's not enough to send a resume and fill the job application form online and click the submit link. So you need to have more than that. One trick is to use LinkedIn more efficiently, of course. Try to find consultants, try to find HR people for the specific company that you're applying on LinkedIn, or you can use the networks, the MEM network, you can use Duke's network, you can use Fuqua's alumni network. So you can use these resources to reach out to individuals that are working actually in these firms. And you can request informational interviews, you can request help landing in an internship position or a job application. However, the job application is, I think, a little bit more structured compared to an internship application, because I think finding an internship, so that would be a little bit controversial, but I think finding an internship would be even harder than finding an actual full-time job, because those internships are not well structured, and for these positions I think references and networks are playing a bigger role than a full-time applicant. So full-time, but on the other hand, both of them are hard, and for MEM students there are additional challenges, especially with international students, visa issues, and all these complications. So I think the best strategy at the end of the day is to apply as many as possible, but apply as efficiently as possible at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So apply as many as possible, do your search, try to find good matches and apply to them, but also apply them efficiently, meaning that try to find common contacts through LinkedIn and through other sources that you can convince them that you're actually a good MEM student. I think that's the main strategy, and it requires a lot of time. Let me be honest with you. It's going to take probably more time than the time that you devote to all of your courses. So you have to develop this skill of time management during these applications, and it's hard. However, you have resources and you have friends. So find your own way. You can either apply by yourself or form a team, apply together, and try to make the process as less stressing as possible, because that's a stressful process, and I think that's perfectly fine. It's challenging. However, that is something that you have to do. The initial stage of the career is, I think, one of the hardest parts of landing a good job. So good luck with that. Apply as many as possible, apply as efficiently as possible is the bottom line.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's extremely helpful. Thank you.
I'm glad.
So we also have some fun questions for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's the good part. Okay.
So,
now I can relax.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can. So the first one is, what's your favorite place to eat on Duke campus?
My favorite place to eat on Duke campus is my desk. So I actually I usually eat at my desk because that's good for productivity purposes. You don't have a huge lunch break, and if I eat a lot in the lunch, I get sleepy during the afternoon. I don't get work done. So the best practice is, I think, eating on desk. But on special occasions, I go out. We have Thomas Center right across Fuqua building.
Yeah.
That's a great place. They offer quite good lunch buffets, and I really like their salmon. I think that's like really high quality. I really like that. I really like it. So from time to time I go there, especially when there's like a special occasion. If I'm meeting someone, if someone is coming to visit. So we usually take our guests there. For more occasional purposes, I like the Panda Express in Bryan Center. Yeah, I really like it. Well, all of my Chinese friends and students claim that it's not Chinese at all, but I think the food is still good. I'm sure that the real traditional Chinese way is much better.
Right.
However, this way is also okay. I think I like it, especially when I'm in a hurry and I'm closer to the campus, because as you might have noticed, walking to the Fuqua is a little bit distant from campus location. So whenever I have the chance to go to the Bryan Center or to go to the main campus, I usually eat at Panda Express.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Okay.
All right. So how long have you been to Durham?
That's my third. Well, I'm ending my third year. That's getting closer to fourth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what do you like the best about Durham?
What do I like best about Durham? Okay, that's a hard question. Well, a lot of people. Well, let me put it this way. So you have to be trying really hard to like Durham if you're coming from a big city.
Right.
So I did my undergrad in Istanbul, one of the most beautiful cities. Well, to me, it's definitely the most beautiful city in the entire world that I've ever seen. So it's really a big transition to come from Istanbul, a city of I think 15 million or so people, to Durham. So it's a big challenge. However, you should try hard, as I said, to find good parts about the city if you're coming from a big place like Istanbul or I don't know, all these big cities around the world. But what I found eventually, so it didn't happen simultaneously. I should be honest on that. The first year was a little bit like, okay, there are a lot of woods here, good forests, and okay, that's nice. So after the first year, I think I get more used to it, and I really like it in terms of the ease of life. So the life is quite easy here. You can get everywhere in like 10-15 minutes. There's no traffic. There is no the hustle of the city. But of course it comes at a cost. There's less to do compared to the city. But I think it's okay. I really enjoy the way that you can get things done, and the way that you can focus on your research, focus on your teaching, focus on your own work in Durham without having to deal with the challenges of the city life. I think that's what I like the most about this beautiful city.
Okay.